they're quite upset. You've got either a middle way, or you remember this audience, the War Room Posse, the guys on our side up in the House, we hate the word CR. We hate it, right? It's emblematic of all the problems we've got now. And so when someone like you that people revere come out on a Twitter thread last night and say, hey, I think the only solution we've got here is a one-year CR, can you walk us through that?
Sure. And I just want to be very clear. I hate CRs too. And that's because almost all CRs, except what I'm proposing, is to take the previous year's spending level and just continuing it. But we have a anomaly right now in the situation that we find ourselves in. And that is that we are under a debt limit deal that was negotiated by the Democrats and Kevin McCarthy. And as a result of that, there are caps in place that if you extend the current law spending, and there's the final appropriations bill of the year. So it has to be a full year bill. It can't be one of these short-term CRs. That will trigger a $73 billion cut to non-defense spending, and non-defense spending alone. And there's a reason why that is. It's because they were generally trying to hide spending that both parties had agreed to. And so to make the bill back in the debt limit look artificially lower from a fiscal responsibility perspective, they set the cap too low. Now, that wouldn't have been an issue if Kevin McCarthy was still the speaker for them, but he's not. And as a result, think of it as a light switch. This light switch would trigger a 9% across the board cut to non-defense spending and non-defense spending alone. And right now, I'm one of the biggest critics of Mike Johnson right now. He is bowing to the fear of a government shutdown within his own ranks. I think he should stand up to that fear like Congressman Green would have him do, but he's not. Right now, the only thing that you could probably get passed in a small, slim majority is something that would be called a continuing resolution, but would have the effect of a $73 billion cut across the board. And the Democrats know this. This is why they were so desiring to sign on to the bill that Johnson has put forward, which, by the way, would be $100 billion more than what was agreed to by Kevin McCarthy. And so that is $100 billion more than a continuing resolution would be. So you get a sense for why this is the main threat that the Democrats know and are preparing for. And if we can get conservatives comfortable with it, it would be a major coup d'etat, and it would give him a chance to go in a totally different direction. But I understand where people hate the notion of a CR, but this is a different CR. It is also, to be clear, it is not the Thomas Massie 1%. They're totally different. This is a full year unlocking of an across-the-board $73 billion that trigger is already in law for a set of historical, recent, contextual reasons that I've already discussed.
Hank, let me just do some math so people can understand this, if I'm correct. If you've got the discretionary spending, you've got the defense budget, I think will be at $800 billion, around there, the non-defense, $73 billion would roughly be a 10% cut in discretionary non-defense spending, roughly. Is that what you're saying? Correct.
It would be 9% cut. And defense, because what they did was, they set the cap for defense higher. And so if you extend defense, and obviously you and I would like to go lower on defense, but if you extend current law for defense, that's going to come in below their statutory cap. That is not the case for non-defense, because in non-defense, they had this cap that they set because they wanted it to appear low. So they sent it at $704 billion, and they had this whole plan, we call it the side deal, that they were going to spend outside the caps, and that was going to be able to be secured in the presence and person of Kevin McCarthy.
They never thought they'd be here. So what they did on this, they didn't really think through. Okay, one thing I got to make sure the audience understands, because this is going to get to the heart of the problem with Speaker Johnson. You just said something that I think is shocking people. Walk us through the math of why Johnson's proposal he signed on is $100 billion more. He's been so played by the Democrats. It's shocking. How did he get to a situation? And show me the math in back of the $100 billion increase.
$100 billion more than the continuing resolution, not $100 billion more than the agreement that McCarthy negotiated. Right. So, again, it gets back to this. They set the caps. Their design was to set the caps so that they could appear to their conservative members that they were doing some historic deficit reduction. They weren't. So he has agreed to this arrangement with Schumer that is $100 billion more than a continuing resolution would be in terms of the across the board cut. So that would be $1.564 trillion. He has agreed to a spending level of $1.659 trillion. So again, you hate CRs, I hate CRs. This isn't really the same type of CRs that we all hate, but he's doing something else $100 billion worse than that. And that's his solution without even considering that this might be approached. Now, I think as a result of yesterday with a number of the members getting his attention by bringing a rule down, these conversations are probably happening, but it's going to be vital that we all have kind of situational awareness. And my view always, Steve, is I care about substance over form. I hug substance tightly, and I'm loose with form.
And you hug strategy tightly, and we'll use the tactics we got to use. A couple things. Am I to take it that the difference then between to go back to the 1 year CR and what Johnson agreed to is $173 billion difference, being the $100 billion he's agreed to? But
so basically, how do you get?
Okay, fine.
The difference between the 73 and the 100 is that they don't get their defense increase. Defense only flatlines. So that's really the difference between the cut and the $100 billion.
I know you got to bounce. What about just approving DOD and DHS for the 19th, and then shutting the government down, saying, "Hey, we got to play hardball here. Everything else shuts down till you secure the border."
Mm-hmm. I'm all for that.
What
I
about
think
that strategy?
in terms of trying to how to navigate these different fights that are going on, I would time this. But when I'd have the fight. I'd have the fight to secure the border. I'd pass what you can pass. But for do not pass a massive Chuck Schumer spending agreement with Mike Johnson when you have this on the table that you could do to leverage long-term cuts.
Russ, where do people get to you today, particularly on Twitter? I know you got